Simon Williams, aka Wonderman, has proven to be one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe. With a body composed of ionic energy, Wonderman has the strength and invulnerability to take on powerhouses like the Hulk and Thor. And even death hasn't been able to stop him for long. But unlike other heroes, Simon isn't only known for his superheroics, as his desire for fame has led him to many different roles. Over the years, he's been a failed businessman, an ionic-powered supervillain, a dead guy, the worst-dressed Avenger, a synthezoid's brother, a kiddie show strongman, an actor, a savage vigilante, dead again, a revenger, and most recently, a pacifist superhero. And soon, he'll even be joining the MCU and Marvel Television's upcoming show Wonderman on Disney+. But after all those different jobs and multiple deaths, who is the real Simon Williams? It's a question that Simon has frequently asked himself, as he struggled to balance his desire for the spotlight and his need to help others. Can all of Simon's good deeds ever truly make up for his criminal past? And can he overcome his overwhelming fear of dying? It probably doesn't help that his biological brother keeps dressing up as the Grim Reaper and trying to kill him. We're here to explore all those questions and more. This is Marvel Recap, Wonderman, with a special shout out to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe research team and the Marvel Studios story team for their help. Before Simon Williams made his comics debut, he started out as the bookish son of industrialist Sanford Williams, founder of munitions company Williams Innovations. No matter how hard Simon studied, he could never live up to Sanford's impossible standards. Meanwhile, Simon's brother Eric rebelled, stealing things to get attention and bullying Simon. Eventually, Simon took over Williams Innovations, only to find himself unable to compete with their biggest competitor, Stark Industries. Still desperate to live up to his father's expectations, he sought help from Eric, who was now a member of the criminal organization, the Magia. After Eric failed to get new contracts using intimidation tactics, some company money went missing and Simon was arrested for embezzlement. When Simon made his debut in 1964's Avengers #9, he had just pleaded guilty to those embezzlement charges. In the courtroom, he was approached by a mysterious woman who paid his bail and offered him a chance to get his revenge on Tony Stark, who he blamed for his company's problems. The woman turned out to be the Asgardian sorceress, the Enchantress, who, with her bodyguard Scourge the Executioner, was working for Captain America's nemesis, Baron Heinrich Zemo. In his South American lair, Zemo bombarded Simon with ionic rays and dubbed him Wonderman, which Simon found to be a little corny. Zemo's treatment gave Simon bulletproof skin and strength that rivaled the might of Thor, and Zemo equipped his belt with miniature rockets that allowed Simon to fly. Zemo revealed that his plan was for Simon to join the Avengers and to destroy them from within. Oh, and he also revealed that Simon's ionic powers would kill him within a week, unless Zemo gave him regular doses of the antidote, ensuring his loyalty. Zemo's team staged a payroll heist, and when the Avengers arrived, Wonderman appeared to take down the bad guys. After introducing himself to the Avengers, he asked to join the team, and while the Avengers were suspicious of his story, with a little mystical encouragement from the Enchantress, they overcame their concerns. Soon, everyone was working to find a cure for him. Rick Jones even ran a medical book drive to help. Wonderman lured the Avengers to South America with a fake distress call, and he helped Zemo's team defeat them. But he was shocked to learn that Zemo planned to kill the Avengers, as he believed the plan was just to capture them. The Avengers had treated him with respect, like an equal, and he repaid them with the basest treachery. Was his life so dear that he'd pay such a price for it? Simon attacked Zemo, which allowed Thor to recover his hammer and the rest of the Avengers to recover. Zemo's team managed to escape, while Simon admitted that every man dreams of doing one noble thing. Now he could die, knowing that at least he didn't live in vain. Hoping to someday restore him, the Avengers stored Wonderman's body and made a digital copy of his brain patterns. We'll come back to those later. While Simon spent the next several years being extremely dead, his sacrifice continued to affect the Avengers for years. The first consequence was the appearance of the supervillain the Grim Reaper, who turned out to be Simon's brother Eric. Blaming the Avengers for Simon's death, Eric armed himself with a scythe that could stun its victims into a near-death state and used it to seemingly murder Goliath, Hawkeye, and the Wasp. And while Avengers ally Black Panther was initially blamed for the murders, he was able to defeat the Grim Reaper, proving his innocence and earning him a place on the team. But the biggest impact from Simon's death involved the creation of the synthezoid known as the Vision, a creation of Hank Pym's rogue robot Ultron, the Vision soon turned on his master to aid the Avengers. The team later learned that Vision's mind was based on Wonder Man's brain scans, giving him Simon's memories and emotions. Those emotions resurfaced when the Avengers thanked the Vision for his help by inviting him onto the team, an act that proved that even an android can cry. The Grim Reaper would return to battle the Avengers several times. In Avengers number 79, he battled the Avengers with a supervillain team he called the Lethal Legion, made up of the Swordsman, Man-Ape, the Living Laser, and Power Man. However, this Power Man wasn't Luke Cage, but Eric Jostin, a mercenary who had been recruited by the Enchantress and given ionic powers just like Simon. When the Grim Reaper returned in Avengers number 102, he tried to convince the Vision to betray the Avengers in exchange for transferring the Vision's mind into Simon's body. The Vision was torn, as he'd fallen in love with his teammate, Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch. He went along with the plan, but it was secretly a ruse to help the Avengers take down the Reaper. The Avengers found themselves haunted by Simon's memory in Avengers number 131, when the time-traveling despot Kang the Conqueror summoned a past version of Simon to fight the Avengers in his Legion of the Unliving. Wonderman battled the Vision, injuring himself on the Synthezoid's super-dense form. After tussling with Thor, Wonderman fought the Vision again. Although he felt like he was fighting himself, he was ultimately taken out by the Vision's rock-hard punches and returned to the time stream by Kang's alternate self, Immortus. And with that, Simon seemed to be gone forever. Until Avengers number 152, when the Avengers were publicly announcing their latest lineup, and a nearby crate burst open to reveal the shambling form of Wonder Man, who accused the Vision of stealing his mind. An examination proved that this was the real Simon, who was somehow alive, but his brain had been wiped clean of all his memories. The Vision felt he was responsible for Simon's mindless state, but the Scarlet Witch, whom he'd recently married in giant-sized Avengers number 4, used her sorcery to track the crate's origins back to New Orleans. She announced to the team that Simon was one of the Walking Dead, or as she puts it, a Zuvimbi. If you're wondering, what the heck is a Zuvimbi? This story was released during a time when the comic book companies were not allowed to use the word zombie, so they used the term Zuvimbi, which was a type of female zombie from a short story by the legendary pulp writer Robert E. Howard. But in the Marvel Universe, it's basically the same as a regular zombie. In the swamps outside New Orleans, the Avengers followed Wonder Man's body to his master, Voodoo gang leader Samuel Baroni, aka Black Talon, who you might remember from our Marvel Zombies retrospective. While the Scarlet Witch was able to defeat Black Talon by throwing tree stumps at him, Wonder Man was left as just a mindless Zuvimbi. Until the next issue, when he was mobbed by excited Avengers fans and souvenir hunters, and the act of fighting them off started to return his mind to normal. Meanwhile, the Scarlet Witch battled the Living Laser, who was under the control of the mind-dominating Serpent Crown. The Laser used the Crown's powers to control Wonder Man, making him his puppet. Henry McCoy, aka the Beast, who'd recently left the X-Men to join the Avengers, investigated the crime scene. When he was attacked by a mind-controlled Wonder Man, Beast was able to knock him unconscious before carrying him back to Avengers Mansion. Neither of them knew it at the time, but that tussle would prove to be the beginning of a lifelong friendship. Luckily, that collision apparently jolted Simon back to freedom, and he helped the Avengers fight the Living Laser and Nuclo, the mutated man. Afterwards, Simon found himself adjusting to being in New York again, only with memories that were years out of date. Even worse, the Avengers weren't sure they could trust him, as they didn't know how he returned from the dead. And the fact that he didn't know troubled him too. Not long after, the Avengers were captured by the Atlantean warlord Attuma, who sent them to destroy his nemesis Namor, the Submariner. Beast recruited Wonder Man to help rescue them, taking on Attuma's army. Unfortunately, that's when Namor arrived, convinced that the Avengers were allies of Attuma. Wonder Man was forced to fight him, taking advantage of Namor's distraction at seeing his old World War II ally, the Wizard, to knock him out. But he was soon able to make peace with Namor. And as the Avengers battled Attuma's General Tyrak, Wonder Man helped take him down, delivering a simultaneous knockout punch with the Vision. Afterwards, the Vision refused to talk to Simon, something that troubled Simon as he went Christmas shopping with Wanda. But as they returned to the mansion, they were attacked by what appeared to be the Black Knight, Dane Whitman, who'd been turned to stone by the Enchantress. The Stone Knight then attacked the Vision, who revealed that the statue was just a copy of the Black Knight. The faux Black Knight refused to believe he wasn't the real Dane Whitman, destroying himself while battling the Vision. The Vision was left alone with the knowledge that perhaps he too was nothing more than a ghost with the memories of a dead man too. Unfortunately, that's when Simon and Wanda arrived home. Jealous of the warmth in Simon's voice, which he could never convey, the Vision gave in to his rage and attacked Simon. It led to a vicious, all-out brawl, which was only stopped when Iron Man stepped in, reminding Wonder Man that he was a guest and threatening to suspend Vision for brawling. But the lingering resentment between the two Avengers continued until it finally came to a head in Avengers number 160 when the Grim Reaper returned and revealed his identity to Simon. After capturing the Avengers, the Grim Reaper held his version of a trial to determine who was truly his brother, Wonder Man or the Vision. In other words, who was Simon Williams? The Vision revealed his backstory, infuriating the Grim Reaper, who believed that his brother would never marry a mutant. The Vision offered to sacrifice himself to save Wonder Man's life, saying that he was not Simon, and that it was better for him to die than for the true Simon Williams to suffer a second death. But that's when the Black Panther argued that Wonder Man wasn't truly the Simon that the Grim Reaper knew either. Wonder Man agreed, revealing his glowing, no longer human eyes. He admitted that he didn't know what he'd become, but that it scared him. The Vision argued that Eric was a fool if he thought he could have his brother back the way that he was. And if both he and Wonder Man had both stepped beyond humanity, then he and the Vision were the true brothers. This infuriated Eric, who prepared to execute the Vision anyway. Wonder Man broke free of his bonds, finally standing up to his brother, knocking him out and freeing the Avengers. The whole experience left Wonder Man shaken, and not even his best pal, the Beast, could console him. After the battle with his brother, Wonder Man officially joined the Avengers, now sporting a new suit designed by the Beast. During a battle with Ultron, Simon developed a fear of dying a second time. That fear wasn't helped when the test revealed Simon wasn't actually alive, at least in any way that science could understand. It turned out that his cells were miniature fusion reactors, making him almost a creature of living energy. His death was apparently just him metamorphosing into his new form. But as for how or why he was still alive, the scientists were stumped. That uncertainty only fueled Simon's fears until they overpowered during a battle between the Avengers and a new version of the Lethal Legion, who had been assembled by Italian aristocrat Count Lucino Nefaria and had their powers greatly enhanced by Nefaria's scientist professor Kenneth Sturdy. When battling the Legion, Simon was overwhelmed by fear and froze, completely unable to fight. Luckily, the Legion's boosted powers suddenly disappeared. However, Simon was left wondering what kind of hero he was. The Legion's powers had actually been absorbed by their employer, Count Nefaria, who was now powerful enough to single-handedly take on the Avengers. During the battle, Simon admitted his fear of dying, but still took on the now god-tiered Nefaria, who punched Simon through the Avengers mansion. That's when Thor arrived to face Nefaria, and Simon was able to overcome his fears and return to the battle, now armed with Cap's indestructible shield. While the Avengers' combined powers could only stagger Nefaria, he was eventually taken out by the Vision, who hit the Count with a mile-high impact from his diamond-hard form. Since Nefaria destroyed Simon's costume, he donned a new outfit, a look which would become known by fans as his safari jacket. Simon was finally forced to face his fear of death when the Avengers battled Michael Korvac, a cyborg from the year 2977 of Reality 691, who traveled through time and absorbed the energy of Galactic's world ship. Korvac used it to rebuild his body into a nearly omnipotent cosmic being, sharing that power with his love Karina, daughter of frequent Avengers foe, the Collector. The Avengers and the time-traveling Guardians of the Galaxy tried to stop him, only to be killed by his unstoppable power. But that didn't stop Simon from attacking him too. And while Simon admitted that he'd wondered why he was alive, he was now sure that it was to defeat Korvac. Then Korvac killed him, which was a solid rebuttal. When Korvac sensed that Karina's belief in him was wavering, he took his own life. Enraged, she also attacked the surviving Avengers before she was felled by Thor's hammer Mjolnir. As Korvac's final act, he brought the heroes he killed back to life, including Wonder Man, who really should be used to that by now. Wonder Man soon adjusted to life as an Avenger, becoming great pals with his teammate Beast. Unfortunately, that's when the Avengers' government liaison, Henry Peter Gyrich, announced that the National Security Council was limiting the Avengers roster to only 7 members so the council could keep better track of the team. And guess who wasn't on the new roster? As he packed, Simon revealed that his recent trip to the movies made him think about acting. If he can get used to playing roles on a stage, maybe he'd feel more comfortable in his role as a superhero. However, Simon's acting career didn't get off to the best start. Simon landed a screen test for the soap opera Secret Hospital, but he blew it when he forgot to make his glowing red eyes look normal. Eventually, he was forced to admit that, while he was never comfortable being Simon Williams' Wonder Man, his new acting career was also going down the toilet. Too embarrassed to take his pay as a reserve Avenger, he was forced to crash at Avengers Mansion. At the suggestion of Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, Simon took a job as a troubleshooter for the high-tech company Cortco. But he was soon called in by the Avengers to help with the mission. Longtime Spider-Man villain the Sandman had developed cancer from the radioactive blast that gave him his powers. He'd taken over a research facility to absorb massive amounts of radiation from its reactor as a possible cure, but his actions threatened to cause a meltdown that would destroy Manhattan. Simon ditched his new job to help, appreciating the irony that while he'd been afraid of dying for years, he was now risking his life to save New York City from someone else who was also afraid of dying. Immune to the reactor's radiation, Simon reinserted the control rods by hand, using 2 more to absorb the radiation from the Sandman, who ended up cured of his disease. Leaving to help his friends cost Simon his job, but he realized that maybe he'd finally found a place to belong, with the Avengers. Wonder Man rejoined the team as a full-time member. As for his acting career, he had to admit that his recent off-Broadway play, City of Angst, was a flop. But he had just landed a part-time job on cable TV that he didn't want to talk about. Beast was soon delighted to discover that Simon's part-time job was on the Uncle Elmer Kids TV show, where he played the strongman Mr. Muscles. Unfortunately, during a taping of the show where Simon was spinning a merry-go-round full of children, one of the kids snatched away host Uncle Elmer's wig. An embarrassed Elmer blamed Simon for revealing that he was bald and fired him on the spot. Simon's next acting gig was in a spaghetti western titled Guns of the Gunman, where ironically, the director didn't find Simon's death scene believable. But after leaving for yet another Avengers mission, he found himself fired and without an agent. Unable to balance both careers, Simon left the Avengers to focus on his acting. He moved to the West Coast, leaving the Avengers far behind him. But just as Simon's acting career seemed to be as dead as, well, him, he was soon hired by a Hollywood director to be his indestructible stuntman. His escape from superheroics proved short-lived, as he was soon summoned by Hawkeye, who was assembling a team of West Coast Avengers to handle emergencies west of the Rockies. Simon joined, admitting to a friend that he'd missed being an Avenger. He also started a brief romance with fellow teammate Tigra, bonding over their shared experiences of being failed Avengers, as Tigra's previous time as a member was cut short by eroded confidence too. During one West Coast Avengers mission, Simon had another run-in with Eric Jostin, who had been convinced by Luke Cage to stop using their shared Power Man name. While Jostin had lost most of his psionic powers to Nefarious' earlier scheme, the scientist Dr. Carl Malice was able to restore them, while also using a version of Hank Pym's growth serum to also give him the powers of Giant Man. Jostin also stole Hank Pym's codename of Goliath. Desperate to prove that he was more than just a second-rate supervillain, Jostin tried to use his new powers to destroy the Hollywood sign. But he was quickly taken down by the combined might of Hawkeye, Iron Man, and Wonder Man. Simon was soon captured by the Grim Reaper, who was determined to kill him and the Vision, once again convinced that neither was his real brother. His plan? To combine the minds of Wonder Man and the Vision, then implant them in a zombie to truly recreate his brother. And by this point, we could call them zombies again, not Zuvimbies. While tracking down Simon, the West Coast Avengers met his mother, Martha Williams, who informed them about his past. Feeling that she let her sons down, all she wanted was for Eric's insane vendetta to end so she could have her sons back. Moved by her tears, the Vision revealed that he shared the memories of her son and that he loved and forgave her. Meanwhile, Simon confessed to Hank Pym that he was still afraid of death. In fact, he kept leaving the Avengers so he wouldn't have to face the fact that he wasn't cured of that fear and that he was also still afraid of his brother. But Hank told him that a man's powers aren't important. What counts is the man who has the power. With the help of Ultron, the Grim Reaper captured the Scarlet Witch and the Vision, who told Simon that he'd met Martha Williams, who he'd considered his human parent. That made Simon realize he and the Vision were more than brothers. They were twins. That knowledge gave Simon the strength to once again battle his other brother. He and the Vision chased after the Grim Reaper, although they did take a moment to share a brotherly hug. They soon tracked Eric down, and Simon confessed that his brother hadn't embezzled money from the family company. It was Simon all along. He'd always been told he was the good son, but he wasn't good enough to keep Williams' innovations going or to turn down Zemo's offer. The only good thing he ever did was to die for the Avengers. His hidden guilt had been festering inside him until he saw the Vision be the Simon Williams he might have been, his better twin. Eric was shocked, as only his true brother would have known the truth about the embezzlement. He ran from the truth, accidentally falling to his apparent doom. As part of his attempts to be a better man, Simon returned to late-night TV to confess his embezzlement to the world. The publicity from the appearance led to an offer to act in an upcoming Universal picture, Archon 4, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you're not familiar with Archon, he was an interdimensional warrior who first appeared way back in Avengers number 75. As part of his new image, Simon adopted a new, more casual costume, dyed his gray hair, and ditched his goggles. He wore this outfit to visit the Vision and the Scarlet Witch, who were preparing to give birth to their baby. But they didn't realize the Grim Reaper had been revived by his lover, Necra, a mutant mistress of the dark arts. As Wanda went into labor, Necra and the Grim Reaper attacked the hospital, only to discover it was defended by Simon, who was aided by Wanda's father figure, Magneto, master of magnetism. Simon realized his brother was a zombie, and when Grim Reaper learned the truth, he turned on Necra, killing them both. Meanwhile, Wanda's extended family, including Simon, Magneto, and Martha, welcomed her twin boys. She named one Thomas and the other William for Simon Williams, although they called them Tommy and Billy for short. Back in LA, Simon was told the producers of the movie hated his costume, so he agreed to drop it. But as his fame grew, he started becoming arrogant, seeing himself more as a superstar than an Avenger. Simon changed to a new, sleeveless costume, which he wore to the Archon 4 premiere. Basking in his new stardom, he snubbed his director, saying that he was a hero and he wouldn't play any more villains in movies. During another talk show appearance, Simon was attacked by the Abomination. Well, it was actually the age-old Tyrannus trapped in the Abomination's body. But we're not getting into that now. After Simon defeated him, he was so shocked to find that everyone thought it was a staged fight. He returned to the Avengers compound and told Hawkeye that he'd learned what was real and what wasn't, and that he'd had a special part to play. As a part of the West Coast Avengers, he had finally accepted his role as a hero. Not long after the Vision suddenly disappeared, and the West Coast Avengers tracked him to a facility housing numerous international agencies, they discovered he'd been disassembled by numerous global governments who'd become scared of his abilities after he briefly took control of the world's computers. While Hank Pym tried to reassemble him, Simon tried to comfort Wanda, who was horrified to discover that the rebuilt Vision lacked Simon's brain patterns, leaving him a cold, emotionless machine. When Wanda asked Simon to allow his brain to be rescanned to restore the Vision, he refused. He had no choice in the original transfer of his soul into Vision, but now he couldn't allow it to happen again. Wanda slapped him, then dumped an entire cliffside on top of him. Of course, he was unharmed, but he flew into space, screaming out his pain, rage, and frustration. A few issues later, we learned why he refused the procedure, as he confessed to the Wasp that he was secretly in love with Wanda. Meanwhile, Wanda's twins started disappearing and reappearing. Wanda's mentor, Agatha Harkness, explained that they were actually made of magic and would disappear unless Wanda was thinking of them. After a harrowing encounter with Mephisto, in which the team learned that the twins were actually magically repurposed portions of Mephisto's soul, which we also don't have time to get into right now, the twins disappeared for good when Mephisto reclaimed them. As Wanda tried to recover from the shock of all that had happened to her, Simon offered his brain patterns to Vision. Despite his love for her, he realized that Wanda truly needed her husband back. But the Vision refused, saying that even with Simon's brain patterns, he wouldn't be the Vision that Wanda fell in love with. Wanda finally snapped from the strain of losing a husband and her children. She turned against the team before taunting Simon about his love for her. She teamed up with Magneto and her brother, Quicksilver, planning to become masters of the world. While the Avengers were able to defeat Magneto, Wanda was soon kidnapped by the time traveler Immortus to become his bride. They traveled to Immortus' time to rescue her, only to encounter his Legion of the Unliving, which included the Grim Reaper. Simon ended up accidentally snapping his brother's neck, while Agatha used her powers to wake Wanda, who was finally able to resist Immortus' control. They returned to their time, with Wanda finally back to normal. Well, normal for her. But that wasn't the last time Simon encountered the Grim Reaper, as he was soon resurrected again by Necra. He was less than grateful though, as he murdered her and absorbed her life force. The Grim Reaper tracked Simon and Wanda to a nearby Mexican restaurant where they battled. Later, to stop Ultron from turning the attendees of the Rose Bowl parade into robots, Simon was forced to team up with the Grim Reaper, promising to never oppose him again. But during the battle, Simon broke his word, taking both the Grim Reaper and Ultron down. Not long after, Simon decided to focus on acting again, moving out of the Avengers compound and into a Hollywood apartment. While on a film set, Simon met screenwriter Alex Flores, whom he soon started dating. But he couldn't leave his old life behind, as he found himself being stalked by Eric Jostin, who was convinced that Simon had the kind of glamorous life that he deserved. Although Simon's method of defeating him by climbing inside Jostin's mouth to attack his vulnerable insides was anything but glamorous. Later, Simon was pulled into an Avengers mission involving the intergalactic Kree-Shi'ar war known as Operation Galactic Storm. Simon objected to the Shi'ar plan to use a giant negabomb to destroy the Kree galaxy, an act which would kill billions. The hyperlogical Vision disagreed, and the two brawled through the ship housing the bomb, with the Vision accidentally bringing Simon to the brink of death. Eventually, Simon was able to convince the Vision that, as a synthezoid, he didn't truly understand death. And while they worked together to stop the negabomb, they failed, and the Avengers were forced to witness the death of an entire galaxy when the bomb exploded with Simon and Vision aboard. However, thanks to their powers, the two survived, although Simon's powers became unstable thanks to exposure to the negabomb. At the end of the mission, the team returned to Earth, and Simon returned to LA. During a battle with the superpowered Cambodian monk Angkor, Simon was beaten so hard that he released a burst of ionic power that flooded his apartment building. During a rematch, Simon's anger over the deaths of the Kree galaxy boiled over, and he killed Angkor. But that didn't cure his rage, and Simon declared that if he had to be a savage to be strong, then a savage is what he'd be. Simon's savage tendencies were only reinforced when, during the Infinity War storyline, he fought an evil doppelganger of himself. Pouring all of his hate and anger into the battle, Simon defeated his duplicate, only to feel like he'd finally become the weapon Zemo intended him to be. When he returned to LA, that anger led him to leaving his apartment and breaking up with his girlfriend Alex. And during a neighborhood brawl, Simon killed criminal Freddie Munson. Confronted by the West Coast Avengers for his crime, he battled them before quitting the team, superheroics, and acting too. That is, until his agent revealed he was offered the lead in a movie of Macbeth. Oh, and it turned out that the ionic blast he released in his apartment building gave superpowers to Alex and Simon's neighbors, who formed themselves into the short-lived super team called the Crazy Eight. When the Crazy Eights were attacked by the mercenaries Splice and Rampage, Simon left the Macbeth set to defend his neighbors. Unfortunately, Alex was gravely injured during the fight. Simon was then forced to deal with the demonic Mephisto again, who wanted Simon's soul, revealing that Simon was actually immortal. The Grim Reaper arrived to battle his brother, only to end up saving Simon by shielding him from a blast of Mephisto's hellfire. Simon comforted a wounded Eric, telling him he chose to be human, to be a hero. Simon then forced Mephisto's son, Blackheart, to heal Alex in exchange for fighting his father. Simon escaped hell with his brother and used his deal with Blackheart to return the Crazy Eight's ionic energy to himself. And while Simon still tried to make his acting career work, he ultimately decided to settle down, propose to Alex, and return to his superheroic career. Soon after, Iron Man brought together the former members of the now-defunct West Coast Avengers back to their former mansion compound to create a new team, ForceWorks. Wonderman was eager to join, saying he was ready for a fresh start. Unfortunately, the mansion was soon attacked by the Kree, who blamed Simon for the detonation of the negabomb. To stop the Kree battleship from devastating Earth, Simon absorbed its energy, exploding in the process. And with that, Simon Williams was dead again. Luckily, Simon's not the kind of guy to let a little thing like multiple deaths stop him. and after sorceress Morgan Le Fay used Wanda's magic to reshape the world into a medieval kingdom under her rule, a captured Scarlet Witch magically called out for someone to help her. Her call brought Simon back from the dead, now entirely made of ionic energy. As the medieval Avengers fought Le Fay, Wanda challenged her, summoning a giant Simon to the battle. Seeing Simon was no match for Le Fay's magic, Wanda channeled the strength of all the Avengers into Simon, who defeated the sorceress, returning the world to normal, except for Simon, who disappeared. But during a later battle between the Avengers and the extra-dimensional super team, the Squadron Supreme from Reality 712, Wanda discovered she could summon Simon at will, although he would disappear when she stopped concentrating. Soon, he started appearing whenever Wanda needed him, and after she had an awkward run-in with the Vision, Simon really started comforting her. During a battle between the Avengers and the weapons manufacturer Moses Magnum, Wanda was knocked out. Simon appeared to battle Magnum, declaring that Wanda was the kindest, gentlest, sweetest, most caring woman on the face of the earth. To find out why she could summon Simon, Wanda visited Agatha Harkness, who revealed that Simon's love was anchoring them together. To restore him permanently, Wanda had to return that love. Meanwhile, the Grim Reaper returned, thanks to Simon weakening the barriers between life and death. The Reaper attacked the Avengers, using his new demonic powers to resurrect a team of dead Avengers as a Legion of the Unliving, which included Simon. Wanda returned to Avengers Mansion to find Simon and the other dead Avengers inside. Meanwhile, in Central Park, the Grim Reaper prepared to sacrifice the Avengers to bring about his version of Hell on Earth. Wanda was able to remind Simon and the dead Avengers of who they truly were, and they flew off to battle the Grim Reaper. As they fought, Wanda poured through her memories to find her love for Simon, only to realize that she denied her true feelings for so long. She shared her love with him, which finally returned Simon to physical life. Simon was able to convince Eric to let go of his hate, to finally surrender. With the Reaper's defeat, Simon and Wanda were finally together as a couple, as the Vision awkwardly watched from across the room. Simon was reunited with his buddy the Beast, and they ended up going out to a jazz club with Wanda and the Vision. Simon confessed that, while his memories from before his resurrection were hazy, he wasn't sure that he deserved to be an Avenger after all the things he'd done. Eventually, the Vision's feelings of resentment towards Simon erupted into a full-on brawl. The Vision confessed that everything that Wanda ever saw in him was just a copy of Simon's traits, while Simon admitted that he'd always envied the Vision, who carried none of the shame and guilt that Simon did. Ultimately, the Vision chose to leave the team, and Simon was left feeling like the Vision was just one more thing he'd broken beyond repair. Simon decided to take some time off and return to LA, taking his pal Beast along for the trip. He reconnected with his former agent Neil Soroyan, although he resisted Neil's attempts to get him back in the spotlight. He also learned that his former fiancée Alex had married after his latest apparent death. To make amends for his past crimes, Simon turned himself into the LAPD for the murder of Angkor and Freddie Munson, only to find that he'd been cleared of those charges months ago due to Angkor's murderous rampage and a previously undiagnosed heart condition that actually killed Munson. Simon also visited his own memorial at Forest Lawn Cemetery, and after meeting with another member of Angkor's order and Freddie Munson's mother, neither of whom blamed Simon, he managed to find some closure. He also allowed Neil to set up a non-profit organization, Second Chances, to help those who have been overwhelmed by forces beyond their control. And with that, Simon and Beast hit the beach for some surfing. A few months later, Simon told Wanda that the Foundation wanted him to be more involved, so he decided to move back to LA. He asked Wanda to come with him, but she was too committed to being the Avengers' deputy chairperson. However, she offered to visit when she could. They ended up only rarely seeing each other, but they were briefly reunited when the time-traveling warlord Kang conquered the world, leaving them both trapped as prisoners. But they found they had spent too much time apart, and now they were more like old friends. Wanda and Simon worked together on a plan to let Simon escape, so he could rejoin the Avengers, help them defeat Kang, and free the Earth. During the Civil War storyline, Wonderman joined the pro-superhuman registration side, starring in informational videos on how superheroes should work with local law enforcement. He also teamed up with Carol Danvers, who at the time was known as Miss Marvel, to help track down unregistered superhumans. After the Civil War, Iron Man recruited Simon to join his new Avengers team, and they ended up battling Ultron, alien symbiotes, and Dr. Doom. He also joined Carol's SHIELD strike force, Operation Lightning Storm. While battling MODOK, Simon found himself mind-controlled and made to attack Carol. Since the mind-controlled focused on rage, she freed him by kissing him. Afterwards, it was pretty awkward, and she asked Simon to leave the team for a few days. But not too long after, they ended up having a brief fling together. After corrupt tycoon Norman Osborn became the head of Hammer, the agency that replaced the peacekeeping SHIELD organization, Simon became disillusioned with the Avengers. During an appearance on a late-night talk show, he said that being an Avenger was a complete waste of his time and that nothing really changes. He was soon visited by the Grim Reaper, who recruited him to join a new version of the Lethal Legion, a group dedicated to taking down Osborn and the Avengers. They managed to kidnap Osborn, but he escaped, and the brothers were soon apprehended by Osborn's own personal Avengers, who were secretly criminals disguised as heroes and thrown into the superhuman prison known as the Raft. What the Legion didn't realize was that the Grim Reaper was working for Osborn, giving him a chance to parade around a member of the previous Avengers that would make Osborn's team look better by comparison. After Osborn's corruption was exposed to the public, Simon was released from prison and found himself approached by Captain America to join a new Avengers team. Simon refused, telling Cap that putting the Avengers back together was a terrible idea and that all of America's recent problems were the Avengers' fault. Simon warned Cap that if he didn't change his mind, Simon would change it for him. He wasn't bluffing, and soon Simon attacked Avengers Tower, battling the reinstated team before disappearing in a blast of ionic energy. Simon soon assembled a team of superheroes with grudges against the Avengers, including his old stalker Eric Jostin, now calling himself Atlas. Simon dubbed this team the Revengers. They attacked Avengers Mansion with Simon facing off against Carol. The Revengers held a press conference, announcing that the Avengers would be held accountable for any actions the Revengers found questionable. However, the Avengers soon showed up and ultimately defeated Simon's team. Afterwards, Beast tried to talk to the captured Simon, who admitted that there was a good chance he wasn't actually real, as Wanda had just created him out of thin air. He had nothing to lose and nothing to gain, and he would make the Avengers see he was right. But when Simon next showed up, he was looking to make amends, telling Captain America that his Revengers' actions may have been due to a nervous breakdown caused by the realization that he's no longer technically human. After a quick punch from the Red Hulk, Simon declared that he'd earned his way back. As the team was leaving to rescue the Wasp from the Microverse, Simon asked to go along. Cap refused, but Simon found his own way there and helped them defeat the army of the evil centaur Lord Guzar and rescue their lost teammate. Wonderman joined the Avengers Unity Division, a group designed to promote peace between humans and mutants in the wake of the war between Avengers and X-Men, as seen in the Avengers vs. X-Men Maxi series. However, Simon had now embraced pacifism, saying that he was done punching things as a solution. At their first press conference, they were attacked by the Grim Reaper, who managed to take down Simon. His teammate Rogue used her power-absorbing abilities to siphon Simon's power, which proved to be too much for her, and she accidentally killed the Reaper. The Reaper wasn't down for long though, as he was soon resurrected by the children of Apocalypse, Oriel and Iman, to become one of the Four Horsemen. Meanwhile, Simon and Wanda renewed their relationship. That's when the Apocalypse twins summoned the celestial Exitar the Executioner to destroy all humans on Earth. To battle him, Rogue took on the powers of the whole team, but after the Celestial was killed, with some help from Thor, and Rogue's borrowed powers were returned to the team, with some help from Wanda, Simon remained trapped inside Rogue. Sometime later, Rogue kissed Deadpool, absorbing his healing factor, which allowed Simon to emerge from her body. Finally back to normal, Simon was reunited with Beast, only to discover that Deadpool had stolen all of his savings to fund the Avengers while he was trapped inside Rogue's body. As Simon tried to adjust to coming back to life again, he and Beast took down the Whirlwind and his crew, even though Simon stuck to his non-violent superhero solutions. And Simon and Wanda soon realized they were done again. Over in Iron Man number 15, Ultron planned to fuse mankind with machines. He captured Simon and the Vision, combining them into a single being. But they were rescued by the combined efforts of Iron Man, the Wasp, and the cyborg cat Dr. Shapiro. Later, Beast seemingly broke into Simon's apartment looking for help, only to reveal that he was actually a clone of Henry McCoy. But while the original Beast had become hardened and murderous after years of dealing with awful events that had happened to mutant kind, the clone lacked those memories and remained his original optimistic self. The clone needed Simon's help to stop the original Beast from the extreme action of using a black hole gun to banish all mutants into a cosmic vault for safekeeping. As the black hole gun was about to fire, Simon flew towards it to take the blast. But at the last second, the original Beast sacrificed himself to save his friend. The clone survived though, and moved in with Simon for a while before leaving to join the X-Men in Alaska. In the Avengers Assemble series, Simon joined the Avengers Emergency Response Squad, battling Abby Morris's Night Stalkers, Victorious, and the Serpent Society. But his most recent appearances saw him join the latest version of the West Coast Avengers, where he was furious that one of the new members, Blue Bolt, formerly the villain Killerwatt, was calling himself Wonder Man. War Machine asked Simon to stick around, and he ended up helping the team battle Ultron. Although, after a wardrobe mishap, he had to do it in a uniform he borrowed from a valet parking attendant. While the team defeated Ultron, Simon saved Blue Bolt's father from the terrorist Flag Smasher, who was the Hydra variant of Steve Rogers, which is yet another rabbit hole we don't have time to explore. During the battle against Ultron, Simon was forced to use violence and became a human bomb. Is this the end of Simon's pacifist philosophy, or possibly the return of the savage version of Wonder Man? We can't say, but it looks like Simon has finally found that balance he was looking for between Simon Williams, Wonder Man, and Simon Williams, working actor. And whatever problem he faces next, he'll probably face it with a smile, probably pointed at some paparazzi too. Simon Williams will finally make his MCU debut in the upcoming series Marvel Television's Wonder Man, premiering on Disney+. In it, Simon Williams is an actor auditioning for the part of Wonder Man, a fictional superhero that he believes he was born to play. And he'll be getting some acting advice from Trevor Slattery, who appeared in Iron Man 3 as the Mandarin, the fictional leader of a real terrorist organization called the Ten Rings. However, in the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King, the real leader of the Ten Rings, Wen-Wu, took Trevor captive. And when he next popped up in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, we learned that Wen-Wu had been making Trevor perform Macbeth for him. That is, until Trevor escaped and survived the Battle of Ta Lo by playing dead.
Calm down, mate. I'm not dead, it's just a performance. Now get down here, play along.
Will Simon get the part? How do superpowers figure into it all?
I'm gonna need you to sign this to confirm you don't have superpowers.
Yeah.
And will Trevor teach him how to play Macbeth, the part his comics counterpart never managed to master? You'll have to tune in and see. And that is our abridged summary of Wonder Man. Want to learn more? Sign up for Marvel Unlimited, where you can find Wonder Man's many appearances. If you're curious, here's the full list of comics referenced in this video. And you can catch Marvel Television's Wonder Man this January on Disney+, where you can also stream Iron Man 3, Marvel One-Shot All Hail the King, and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This has been Marvel Recap, Wonder Man.